arms towards the sun. You feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive and you don't have to be afraid.
Welcome to the Bassline, everyone. Dr. Phillip Triantos has a background in mathematics. He's a helicopter pilot. He's an Orthodox Christian. He's a family man. He's a radiologist, and he's one of the right docs of history. He is one of the unsung heroes of medical freedom, and it is my great honor and privilege to introduce to you, the Bassline audience, the exceptional Dr. Phillip Triantos. How are you today, Dr. Triantos?
I'm doing great, Jeremiah. I appreciate you having me on your show. What an honor.
Oh, it's the honor mine. I really appreciate having you. And I really do, as I've said before, and I just said in the introduction, I really do consider you one of the unsung heroes of medical freedom. There are some doctors, of course, who have gained notoriety throughout all of this. And I know you're not someone who's promoting yourself in any way or drawing attention to yourself. You're just, in my opinion, just a very principled man and someone who's really involved in this struggle from the heart. So I think that's noticeable, and I think it's outstanding. I would love to just ask, first of all, if you could share with us your medical background and experience a little bit, how long you've been in medicine and what you do somewhat as a radiologist. If you could explain that, I'd love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my specialty is radiology, and during that, I did a lot of interventional work. When I was in the hospital based. So I'm not your typical radiologist. Most of those radiologists like to be, they're more secluded and more introverted, and I'm kind of quite the opposite. I'm more of a people's person, and I'm more of a hands-on type of guy. So that's why I kind of gravitated towards the interventional aspect of radiology. And not many people know the difference, but you have a diagnostic radiologist who diagnoses from the MRIs, CAT scans, and all that, and then you can be strictly interventional. I did both, so I wasn't a full-blown interventional. That's all I did, but I worked on patients all the time, from putting stents in to doing biopsies, et cetera. So I've always kind of enjoyed that part of it more than just reading studies. But anyway, moving along, when the pandemic hit, I was diagnosed with a condition actually the same year, and in 2020, and it kind of pulled me back from radiology. However, I started picking up studying the pandemic, COVID, and what that entailed, and I just noticed some peculiarities that I did not agree with, and kind of steered off course, basically giving up most of my radiology career to take this track down the COVID, basically doing a fellowship for a year and learning about it and learning how to treat, et cetera. So that's kind of where we ended up.
Wow. Yeah, very interesting. So how would you describe your COVID learning curve in terms of, there were some people who were just those really astute people who just, they knew right away that something was off. Then there are people such as myself who sort of bought along, or went along, I should say, went along for the ride at the beginning, but then quickly noticed, wait, some things are askew, some things are amiss, some things are not adding up here. How would you, what kind of report card would you give yourself in terms of your COVID reaction? Where do you fall in terms of that scale?
Probably a B minus. I was sort of like you. When the information started getting to the States, and it just didn't seem right. And when we heard so many different symptoms of the virus, it was like, well, that didn't make sense. Most viruses will do this or do that or do this. And I'm just thinking to myself, why is it attacking so many systems? Why is it spreading the way it's spreading? And then all of a sudden we get this information, well, don't treat, let's wait for the vaccine. And if you do come to the hospital, wait until, literally, the Cleveland Clinic, I think, had it posted in the paper. I remember reading, wait till you turn blue or wait till you can't breathe. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, as a physician, I've never been told not to treat. And so that just kind of, putting all that together, it's like, this is not right. And then people would call me all the time and ask me, when the vaccines came out, which one should I take? I said, well, I'm not to that point yet. I'm not taking one yet. But if you ask my advice, if you're hell bent on taking one, I would probably go with the Johnson and Johnson. It only makes sense you take one shot and you're done. But again, I don't recommend it because I just don't know enough about it yet, and the things weren't adding up. And and then I'm thinking, well, they knew, and the scientists know that in any kind of viral pandemic, you can't vaccinate your way out of it. I mean, you just it's never been done. RSV, I mean, excuse me, whatever pandemic there's ever been virally, it just never happened. And we can't even get rid of the flu. So, it just kind of just added. It was like, just a process of elimination. And then finally, it hit me that this is more than just a virus. This is a military. This is a man-made virus, and it just all came together. Now, I had help with some experts in the field and listening to them and studying them, from the early goers like um, uh, Dr. Bachtick, you remember, and yeah, Malone and Gert Vandenbush. I was listening to all these guys, and Ryan Coley was early on the scene, and Pierre Corey, Mike Eden, and all these guys. I don't, say I'm agreeing with them 100%, but they taught me a lot. And those are the guys that I was listening to, and they kind of solidified and validated my thought process. And that kind of, when it hit, it just kind of, from that point, I probably in 2020 at some point, it just kind of just sank in and said, this is bad. And I knew I was on the right track at that point. And that's when I kind of veered off and I started, once I learned, my physician, my personal physician wouldn't treat me. And she said, you can go down the hall. When I got COVID for the first time and I was really sick, I ended up in the hospital that round, but my physician wouldn't see me. It was her partner. And he goes, do you mind if I try some stuff that I'm studying these guys up north, of course, north to us is Tennessee and upwards. And so, do you mind if I try some of this ivermectin on you? I said, no, I don't care what you try. Cause I knew with the disease that I had, that if it went into my lungs, I'd be dead and it'd be over with. There's no surviving because I was already in failure to some extent. So anyway, he gave me the ivermectin, and that was back then. The protocol was really only for like one day, maybe two at maximum. But anyway, that was the only day my fever broke. So I knew at that point that this thing that was, had this bad reputation and they were trying to smother it up, that there may be something to it. And then after about 3 days, I got my fever came back after 24 hours, and I called my doctor back and I said, hey, would you give me some more of that ivermectin stuff? And he did, and my fever broke again. And anyway, long story short, I think I give him credit for saving my life. And that's when I started getting completely into it. And that was the November of 2020. We had Thanksgiving dinner and 21 people were there. 14 got COVID and 3 were hospitalized. 1 was me and 1 died. So from that event. So that's kind of when I took off with it, and started treating patients and learning, more and more and more. So, and I hooked up with a local group here called Concerned Doctors, and fortunate, we've got one of the leaders in the, the vascular microclotting fields right here in our backyard. And I've been kind of affiliated with him and some others like-minded physicians. So.
Interesting. Yeah, my condolences on the person who died. Could you tell us at all any of the circumstances surrounding that person? Was it a person?
Yeah, absolutely. That was my mother. So basically, when I got sick and after I got out of the hospital, she was 80 years old. She had some comorbidities, and there's a typical patient that would, if was going to die would be her. And at this point, I really wasn't treating anybody, right? I was just treating myself. So I get out of the hospital and she develops a little sore throat and nothing to it. And long story short, I was still timid about treating, and I'd take her to her doctor. I mean, she was not her doctor, they wouldn't see her, but we took her to the emergency room and her sats were dropping a little bit. They said, oh, she's fine, go home. And we bring her back and she starts to decompensate a little bit more. And that's when I started treating. She's my first ground zero. But at this point, she already developed pneumonia. Her sats were dropping. And, I called my pulmonologist buddy up and I said, I actually had a portable x-ray machine in my house because I was starting a company at the time to go take x-rays of people that couldn't get out of their house, like my mother, people that wouldn't go. The doctors weren't seeing people, so you couldn't go to their office. So I had this idea, I'll just go to their homes and take the x-rays for the doctors so they'll have an idea. But I got sick with my illness. My mother got sick. So it kind of didn't work. But anyway, I took x-rays of my mom, and literally within a day, her lungs basically whited out, meaning that, they were full of something. And so I called my pulmonologist friend. I said, look, I've just started ivermectin. I just started this. I put her on O2 at my home and all that stuff. And I said, he goes, the only way that she's going to survive is get her to the hospital. And as you know, that was probably the worst thing I could have done. I took her to the hospital, and they basically told me that, she's going to die. And I said, what is y'all's experience to this point? Because I was still learning about the ventilators and everything, and I didn't know about the death protocols that were happening in the hospitals. That wasn't on my radar yet. And so they said, oh, well, we'll just keep her sedated. If we put her on the vent, she'll probably, most likely she will die. So I said, well, don't put her on the vent, because she told me she didn't want to be on a vent. And basically from that point on, they just drugged her up until she died, until she suppressed her bleeding with midazolam, and then, of course, morphine. And, I thought I was doing the right thing, because they told me there's no hope. And that really lit my fire. And basically the last 4 years, that's what I've been doing. And it's financially has been a huge burden, but to me, it's investment in souls is what I call it. SOULS, souls. Those are where my investments are. And I literally have treated, thousands of patients now, and most of them not in, most of them over the phone, telehealth wise, and not collected a cent. So it was a passion for me, just to keep somebody else from going down that path. And so that's the story. That's what got me kicked into it full gear.
Wow, it's powerful. So of course we're both members of the Stop the Shots community on X, and we've been rallying every day, trying to build up our organization to demand that these mRNA injections get removed from the marketplace. We have deemed them as completely harmful. Our mutual friend, Dr. Marble, he refers to this as the biggest mass poisoning in world history, and I can't think of a bigger mass poisoning in world history in terms of the scale, the totally international nature of this event, et cetera, et cetera. But amazingly, I come across people even today. I mean, just arguing on Facebook, someone who said to me, oh my God, you're crazy. COVID vaccines saved millions of lives. You're so ignorant, et cetera, et cetera. And I tell them, no, what you're saying is factually wrong. People have been harmed by these shots to an enormous extent. And I could point to several categories of evidence to support that statement. But what would you say, Dr. Triantos, in terms of your description to someone who might not know how harmful these shots have been? If someone were to ask you sincerely and be, sincere in wanting to hear the answer, what would you explain to someone who says, well, what do you mean these shots are harmful?
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, eh, in my practice now, that question is like a shocker to a lot of patients to this day, and not only patients but to physicians. And it's really disheartening that not everybody knows how detrimental these shots are. And I try to tell them in simple terms that yes, the data is there. There's actually 3,900 papers that are publications that have been published that prove there have been vaccine injuries, but I don't even go there. I just say, look around, look at your peer group, look at your family, look at your friends. Have you noticed anything unusual in your neighborhood? Have you noticed younger people that have died? I mean, and that's just in my peer group. And, just out of, like, let's say the 4 or 5 couples that we hang around, the ones that got vaccinated, every single one had a reaction to it in some degree. And I say, just look at who you're hanging around, look at who you associate with, something simple like that. I mean, because you can throw them all the stats and all the papers and all that stuff, and until it happens to them, matter of fact, it's funny you asked that, because I was just this past week, I had a little accident myself on a let's just say a motorcycle got the best of me, and I was getting some x-rays done on myself, and the technologist that helped me out actually said, I've been having these recurrent strep throat infections, and I've never had them before. And of course, I know she's been vaccinated, And she asked me if I could help her, and I said, certainly I'll help you. And I started some treatment, and she said, this really never affected me, and I never really thought about it. And because she's heard me speak about it before. And she said, until it happened to me. And I said, well, I don't want that to happen to people. And it's just, and I think that's the problem. The people that weren't affected or not affected to this point, it's hard to break through to those people that, hey, something is real, something is tangible out here. But I believe that if you really pay attention to your surroundings and your peer groups and the people even in your neighborhood, we've had 4 people in my neighborhood die, suddenly, just sad, just sudden adult death syndrome. They just didn't wake up the next day. And, a couple of them were doctors, and it's like, and they still, and I don't know how to get through to them, but that's what I usually say. I say, just look around you, without throwing stats at them, without, I do that. I do tell them about what I see in my practice, and I can go through that whole list of what we're seeing. But I just basically tell them, look around and see if you don't see anything unusual about so and so getting sick, or just we're seeing too much of it. So anyway, something simple like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can just take a look around. One thing I notice is, that very much applies to every sort of subgroup that I participate in. My martial arts community, some strange things to report from there. The musicians community, terrible outcomes, sudden deaths, cancers, heart conditions, etc. My own family, comparing vaxxed and unvaxxed, etc. I mean, any which way I want to divide the circles of people that I know, there's a red flag, there's an alarm, um, without fail, as it applies to every group that I participate in on a regular basis. My next question for you, Dr. Triantos, is, I guess, sort of more of a broad question. I mean, I hate to go so broad, but I want to hear your perspective in terms of looking at the world at large and just some of the things that make you concerned as a citizen. I don't mean just every social issue, but I mean big picture. Um, how would you describe your concerns about our society, about the human race, moving forward? Um, if you were to explain that again to an open-minded person who says, well, why are you concerned about the state of the world? I mean, there's always been problems, but what's going on now that you think might be a little bit new or different? How would you describe some of the things that we might be concerned about as the world continues to shape itself every day?
Yeah, I think probably is that it's worldwide now, but I'm meaning that, we're dealing with a worldwide tragedy. And before, in my lifetime, that's never occurred, right? Let's say we have a war over there in Afghanistan, that's not really affecting us here in the States, except for the poor kids that have gone over there and sacrificed their lives and their mental health for us, sitting over here. Or let's say there's an outbreak of cholera in Africa or something. It's a localized thing. So we don't really feel that pain, right? It's not a worldwide thing. Now this is a worldwide thing. It's so, to me, evil and dark, that it reaches every corner of the world, and that to me is different. And I'm talking about, the virus, Corona 2, and the vaccines. I mean, it's been distributed to what, 7 billion people on the planet. I mean, it's just not a localized thing anymore. And to me, that's very dark and deep. And then you think, well, why would our government be trying to hurt us? Well, then you have to think that there are people within the government and beyond the government, a higher party or a higher echelon of rich billionaires that are controlling whatever they want to control. And to me, I think it ends up in a depopulation type of event. So, you know, it it if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I'd have said you're crazy. What are you talking about? But over the last 5 years and what I've seen and what I'm witnessing it on a daily basis, it's very, very dark. And to what I tell people, just stay close to your God. And to me, it's Christ and God. So, you better get close to your maker, because I really think we're in for rougher times ahead. I don't think this is anywhere over. And you better have something more than earthly thoughts on your mind at this point. And I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I hope in about a year you come back to me, Triantos. What were you trying to scare us for, you idiot? But
Right.
right now, I don't see that happening unless you can change my mind otherwise.
Yeah. So that being said, what do you think should be the priorities of the medical freedom movement? How should your rank and file, everyday medical freedom activist be thinking? What should we be oriented towards? What do you think we should consider as priorities?
Well, you know, I think the biggest thing is to stop what we're doing, meaning stop the mRNA technology from progressing. And I don't know how we're going to do that. You know, I'll give you an example. I tell my kids or whoever wants to talk to me about it, you know, when it comes to politics, our Trump supporters, right? We're all into Trump. He's going to do this and this and this. And I said, okay, great. We we got him doing this, and this great things, but you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? That old saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So let's say he does everything perfect, okay, except for two things. And I'm not going to mention those two things right now, but I will mention one of those two things that I think he's way off. And there's many things that he's off. But let's say he does all this perfect thing. The economy is great. We're all eating healthy food again. We're all doing the right things, except he's letting the mRNA technology progress. Well, that is devastating. I mean, I don't care all the other positive benefits, whatever they may be. I'm not saying there are any. I'm just saying whatever they may be, this mRNA technology is so devastating. I don't care what the positives are. So that's the weakest link. And whatever we need to do to stop that was what we have to do. Now, second part of that is to treat the patients that are ill and to find cures and treatments that get them their immune system back in check. And it's interesting to hear on some of these spaces where people say the doctors aren't doing enough. Well, the doctors that I'm hanging around are doing all they can. Now, yes, some are benefiting financially. Yes, some are getting notoriety from it. But it's not something that we studied in our textbooks, right? It's not something that we knew about. I mean, we're learning. It's like literally drinking out of a fire hose, and it changes daily, and the information we get changes daily. Like for instance, I just came across this. I don't know if you're familiar with a podcaster in England. He's Dr. Philip McMillan. Are you familiar with
No,
Philip? Any-
I'm not sure that I am. I don't think so.
Okay, he's got a network called Vegan or Vejon. Anyway, he just broke some news last week at some
Oh, yeah, I
scientists.
do know. I think I know who you're referring to, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, he broke some information last week, and I wasn't aware of this. Now, some others, I'm sure there are a lot of in the movement may be aware of this, but uh, it's an interesting bit of history of how these shots were made. And I know that I've learned from Dr. David Martin, as you know about as well, educated me. I mean, unbelievable educator, and I've learned a ton from him. But so I already knew that these were made and developed, the patent, the trails, and all the everything from Ralph Barrett, North Carolina, and all that stuff. But what Dr. McMillan brought out the other day is a group out of Australia, a media company. They were talking about there are 6,000 more papers that this group of scientists pulled out. And on the way they made the virus and the vaccine, they installed these genes that made what's called open reading frames, ORFs. Okay. And each one of those ORFs have a certain function. And there are some that were made by DARPA, a division of our defense Department of Defense, and there were some that were made by China. And the mixture, they literally, like one of them is made specifically to stop autophagy, meaning like cleaning of your cells, right? It is made to stop that process from occurring in your body so it'll be more virulent and more toxic to your body. I mean, so each one of them, one is made to stop apoptosis, meaning that when your cell becomes sick, it just, you want it to die, or when it becomes senescent, you want it to die. Well, it stops that process from happening. Well, what does that mean? When you have senescent cells that don't function in a bad or a good way, they're clogging up the system. They're making you ill. You can't get well. So anyway, there are multiple ORIFs on this genetic makeup of SARS-CoV-2 that were made by our Department of Defense and the Chinese government, along with Wuhan Institute of Virology. And that's something I just learned last week, and it's very scary and damaging that we're not even at the iceberg. And once we get the spike protein, you know, treatment down, there's more to come. And they were talking about an ORF10, another protein that is made, that they believe that may be a big part of the thrombotic process of the virus. So like I'm saying, it's changing, and we're learning more and more every day. So, it's I understand the frustration of patients. Believe me, I'm a patient. I've been sick 3 times with it. I lost a mother. I've lost a sister actually to the vaccine in England. She had 2 shots and 2 boosters and was dead on the kitchen floor, and in a week. So it's so frustrating as a physician and as a patient that we can't do more. But that's the process. I mean, it just takes time, and we're going, to quote the warp speed guy, we're going warp speed as best as we can. I mean, we can only do so much. So anyway,
Yeah, well, my
I
condolences as well about your sister. That's absolutely terrible. Yeah,
appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
and you actually bring me to a question that I've asked other doctors, and I'd be very curious to hear your take on this. But I'm absolutely amazed and absolutely just perplexed at something that could be injected into a person and then potentially cause like a total breakdown of their system in the case of certain vaccine injured individuals that we both know who have testified, many times over by now that they took their injections under one circumstance or another and just witnessed the total collapse of their health, like in the form of not just one problem, but suddenly your body's just breaking down, problems with multiple organ systems, multiple diseases being diagnosed at the same time. And then, of course, there are people who die outright, sadly. Um, but uh, is it possible? Because, of course, there are other people who they've taken their injections, and as of now, they say, well, I'm fine. And they've taken maybe even an injection, maybe even multiple boosters. I mean, I've seen people who've taken as many as 6 boosters and say, well, I'm fine. And I've had most of the boosters or whatever. I don't think I've ever met someone who's taken 10 boosters. I don't think I've come across anyone who's even claimed to be fully up to date, anyone who continued to follow the science, as they said. But my question is, uh, how, well, I guess a two-part question is it possible, in your opinion, to have received one of these toxic injections and to have simply been not harmed by it for some fortunate reason or another? Is that possible at all? Because if it is, I have a hard time understanding how that is possible. So I guess that's the next part of the question, is how is it possible to receive this injection that's harmed people so severely and not have been harmed by it, for one? And if so, how?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, because that's why you have so many non-believers, because there's so many people that are walking around. And I think that's multifactorial. Number one is the way it was made. And Shasha Latypova schooled me on this. And then, she was in the pharmaceutical business for years. And basically, we think that it was made like at a Pfizer plant or a Moderna plant, but it's not. It's made in multiple locations.
Sorry, folks, we got interrupted there for a second, but we're back online. So go ahead, Dr. Triantos. You were talking about, the people who have received their shots and they appear to be doing fine, and how that creates a misleading effect. Okay, so for some reason we were having some technical difficulties there, but I hope we're clear sailing from here on out. So what happened, Dr. Triantos? We were saying, we were talking about people who have received multiple shots and appear to be doing fine, and how that sort of makes a misleading understanding of the situation for many people who say, well, how could it be that someone else was injured and I wasn't?
Right. So basically, that's one of the big battles we got to overcome because, when you've been injected and you're not sick, and then and I'm telling you that, hey, these are dangerous and people are dying and getting sick. Well, that's something that, we all think, well, we believe that these are made in a certain facility, i.e. Pfizer, Moderna, wherever the facility is, but that's not how it's made. It's made in different locations, brought together and put together. So when you got that vial and it went into your body, you may have gotten zero mRNA stuck into your body. And there have been studies that show that some of these vials do not have any protein in them at all. You may have gotten a vial that you may have gotten a ton of mRNA that was intact, or a ton of the lipid nanoparticle goes around it, more than the guy behind you. And there's been a case where a mother and daughter have been injected. The mother got ill, the daughter, nothing happened to. So, just think about this. Let's say you go to your pharmacist and let's say there's six vials, excuse me, there are six doses in a vial, and they pull it out. It's supposed to be what, 72 degrees below Celsius, whatever the crazy number was for Pfizer, I think it was. And let's say you pull it, they never was at that temperature. So the stuff maybe start break down, right? We don't know. So then they put it on their counter, and then the first person in the morning, they give the injection. Well, let's say the next person is not till 3 or 4 or 5 hours later. Well, that's totally changed the composition of that injection. So we don't know what composition you're actually getting. So that could be one explanation. I mean, you really don't know. You may be getting a super potent or something with not as potent, or something that has already degraded and it's functionalist now at this point. So, those are the ones you pray that you get is a not a functioning, a non-functioning vaccine. So, and again, your own immune system, was your immune system stronger than the next? Where did you already have a slightly compromised immune system from previous illnesses or vaccines or whatever? So it's multifactorial, and we could go on down the list. But I really do believe that it's a variation in the lots that you got, basically, whether that is from poor well, of course, we know there's no good manufacturing process to begin with. We know that didn't happen. So was it from poor manufacturing? From an overdose of one shot to the next one not having anything. So that's probably what, you know, happened most commonly.
Right. Yeah, I was talking about that last week with my friend and guest Mark Girardeau, who, I guess if you frame the question slightly differently, it's an interesting question in terms of how is it that one person who is in great health receives a shot and has their health destroyed, and someone who's in terrible health receives a shot and seems okay for the time being from their reaction. That you seem like, certain people who seem like candidates to possibly die considering their state in the first place. They fared pretty well, and then certain people who were extremely healthy, including athletes, who had some of the most severe reactions. In general, I know you have to get to work pretty soon, Dr. Triantos, so I don't want to hold you up, and I know we're gonna end our discussion a little bit earlier than the end of the show, and I'll address the audience separately once you have to go. But where can people keep track of your work? For one thing, do you have a Substack,
I do
Dr. Trin?
not. I'm low
Not
key,
yet?
like you said. I try to stay off the radar. Matter of fact, there's so many days that I just want to get back to radiology and go to a world that I knew before, but I can't. I always say I'm going to do it, but I never do it. So basically, what I am kind of, I'm affiliated with Dr. Jordan Vaughn here in Birmingham. I'm affiliated with Dr. Diane Counts, who's a neurologist who's like-minded and are seeing basically, vaccine injury and long COVID and still acute COVID cases. So I do some work for both of them, and I kind of do my radiology in the evenings to pay the bills. The rest of the stuff, I just kind of help out. And so I really don't have a place that you can, uh, if you wanted to look me up and come see me or anything like that, I just kind of float around and just kind of help out as best I can in, certain situations. So there's no office for me to come see me at this point, and I've kind of kept it that way. I'm just kind of more of an educator and try to, um, if somebody calls me up on the phone, and of course I'll take care of them, but I try to stay out of, I'll let the experts. I'm not an expert in that. I'm a radiologist, as I tell people. I just learned a lot in the last 4 years. So
Right,
anyway,
right. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we do have 5 minutes, and then I know you have to run, but I would love to ask you if you could tell us your perspective pertaining to vaccination and vaccinology in general, because I'm one of these people who was not a so-called anti-vaxxer before this whole event. And on account of the COVID shots, I started questioning things in a way that I hadn't before. And it took me quite a bit of time, actually. And now I would say, you know what? I'm a full-blown anti-vaxxer at this point. I mean, I have more research to do. I'm not resting on my laurels. I literally have research, books to research set aside, and I'm kind of going through things slowly and systematically. But I've heard enough to say that, from my point of view, this whole practice should be really called into question, re-examined, etc. What's your feeling about vaccination as a practice at this point? What are your thoughts?
basically the exact same thing. I mean, you're talking to an allopathic trained MD that would, if you like, again, if you'd asked me this before COVID, I'd say you're crazy. And unfortunately, all those years of these, these poor, unfortunate souls that developed autism from vaccinations, and in hindsight, I wasn't one of those that said you did, that's not true. I just didn't believe it. I didn't know enough information. Of course, they didn't teach us anything about vaccines in medical school. All they just told us when to give them, right? And I always heard they were safe and effective. So absolutely, I would not put another shot in my body until the day I die. And if somebody tried, there'd be something being pointed back at them, and that at least I'd get one of them before they stuck me with something else. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm just like you, Jeremiah. I was not an anti-vaxxer. I never had been. I had every vaccine that they offered me in medicine and the hospitals that I had to take, and probably that's why my health's so bad. I mean, it has been bad over the years. I had lymphoma when I was 36 years old, and
yeah,
I had plaque psoriasis. I mean, I still battle that from time to time. Then I developed this cardiac issue. So, I mean, I've always been kind of like having issues, right? And then I'm looking back at it, and I'm thinking, all those vaccines I took, all those vaccines I took, and uh, I would never, nor, I'm going to say one thing. I gave a public talk Saturday, and a girl came up to me and says, "You don't know who I am, but I just want to thank you. You saved my friend's baby's life." I said, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "You told her not to get a vaccine." And that was the answer we were looking for her. I said, "Yeah, that's my mission in life, is because after studying like you for the last 4 years and learning from so many people, I can go down the list about the vaccines and they're not being safe and effective and what they've caused, from the HPV vaccine all the way down to the hepatitis B. I mean, the hepatitis, yes, vaccine is when you're born, the day of your birth. I've saved probably 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 babies already. And that to me is the most important thing. I mean, seriously, if I can keep these things out of these babies, that is one of my big goals now. Yeah. So the answer to your question is, I was never an anti-vaxxer. I'm an anti-vaxxer now, and that's just from what I've learned in the last 4 years. But yeah, I guess that's the only positive thing that's come out of COVID. These vaccines, is it's opened me up to seeing the truth, and there's no convince me otherwise. In going back, it's not going to happen.
yeah. Yeah, there's so many things that we could say additionally to that, and so many things that we do discuss on a regular basis in the stop the shot spaces. For example, the medical community, I think, they're all gung ho about their vaccines and their never ending vaccine schedule. And I think they need to realize that at the very least, and this is, I mean, I think it's well past this, but at the very least, they have not communicated properly, because we frankly don't know what's going on at this point as parents, as patients. We really have to ask, is this stuff really necessary? Are you profiting from some of these procedures that are frankly unnecessary? Are we being put at risk and not being told, with adequate levels of explanation that, we are actually taking chances with our health, and these are not perfectly safe things. I think there's a lot of things, procedures in general, and vaccinations certainly, that there are real risks, and that has not been truthfully explained to the patient. We're being told, no, you'll be
Yeah,
fine, and that's not true.
Yeah, that's not true. And looking back, they say the numbers range varying where you are in the country, but at least minimum 1 in 33 kids are now autistic. I think it's 1 in 22 black males in California. So you can go through different statistics, and they'll tell you different things. Looking back, I have three biological children, and one of them is a high functioning autistic. Okay, so that's 33 basically percent right there. I'm fortunate to have my nephew and his wife, my niece, and their two children live with me. So the oldest daughter, uh, I lost that battle with the vaccines, and she'll be 7 this month actually. But she did get her 4 month old. So my wife and her mother bucked me, and I told them all the stuff that I've learned. They hear it every day, right? They hear it every day, but they just didn't. They just thought they had to have it for the public school system. They thought they had to have it for the kid, all that stuff. Long story short, I lost the battle, and she got her 4-year-old vaccines. I did get them to spread them out. And since those vaccines, she's probably been sick every other week for the last 3 years. Whether it's a cough, asthma, or whatever it is, she's been sick. Not a perfectly healthy child. Now, they've had a baby since then, and he's a 2-year-old boy, right? I won that battle. Never has had a vaccine. He's a tank. He gets sick. A day later or 2 days later, he's perfectly fine. And that's what you want. And it's just night and day difference. And I got my my own experiment right here in my home. And the other thing I tell people that um, look at three subgroups. Look at children that have never been vaccinated. They're the most healthiest. You can look at all the stats, Paul Thomas and all those guys, right? Children's Health Defense. Look at all their stats. You can look at the Omnish, right? They don't vaccinate. They're healthy, right? And then talk to somebody that's 100 years old and ask them how many vaccines they've had, or somebody in their 90s. Ask them how many vaccines they had. It's not going to be very many. The ones they got were probably the ones recently, COVID or whatever. I mean, I'll take my mother-in-law, for example. She's 88 years old, and she used to brag about her health, how great of health she was in. Got sick and tired of hearing how great health you're in. Okay. She gets the COVID vaccine against my will. Somebody coerced her into doing it, and a couple of boosters, I believe. And now, what does she do? She's been ablated twice, AFib, and chronic UTIs. All right, we know. I mean, so basically, it's just too overwhelming, the data. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's a category I pointed out as well in terms of anyone who had a pre-existing condition, anyone frankly above really 60 years old just gets written off as, oh, well, they have this condition. Oh, well, they're getting older. No, this is something they wouldn't have suffered from, and they're suffering because of this unnecessary intervention. Or even a person, let's say, is, 80 something and dies. They were supposed to live until their 90s. They might have lost 10 or more quality years of life, but it just gets completely written off and not even addressed as possibly a vaccine fatality or vaccine injury. But I know you have to go, Dr. Triantos. I don't want to make you late. And I really appreciate the time that you've spent. I really appreciate your general presence in the Stop the Shots community. I find you to be a voice of reason. And I think that the medical freedom movement certainly benefits from your participation to a great degree. So thank you
Well, I
so much
appreciate
for everything that you do. Yeah,
it.
and thanks for taking the time to be here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. It was great. Keep up the great work.
Well, thank
And
you. Have a great shift over there
all
doing
right.
doing good work that you do, and I'll talk to you soon, Dr. T.
Okay, great. Thanks. Take
Take care.
care. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was our interview with Dr. Phillip Triantos. This is a pre-recorded show this week. Next week will be pre-recorded as well, and we'll resume our uh, live programming. We have the outstanding James Roguski as a guest on March 21st. So very excited about that. Incredibly insightful, knowledgeable man, well known in the medical freedom movement. And I would like to take a moment here to, first of all, invite you to an event this Sunday at a really great venue here in Harlem called Rock Mill Fitness. Rock Mill Fitness is founded by a good friend of mine, Milton Washington. Milton is a standing figure in our community. He is a photographer. He is a connoisseur of fine herbs, you might say. He's a leader in what you call the clean cannabis movement. He is also the inventor of Rock Mill Fitness, which is an incredible system that uses African stools as the basis for the workout. But you only have one tool in the Rock Mill workout, and it's your African stool, which is used for all sorts of exercises. It's really creative, it's really fun, and I recommend you give Rock Mill Fitness a try. But first of all, come check out the venue this Sunday. That is March 9th, and the address is 274 Lenox Avenue. That's just south of 124th Street. You could take the 2 or the 3 train. That's, of course, here in New York City. Sorry for you international folks who won't be able to attend. But if you're international and you know anyone in New York City, or even if you just post this on social media where you're likely to have a friend or a follower in New York or around New York, please tell them about this great event, because we're unveiling a new sound. It's sort of a new African diasporic sound. There's going to be some really cool loops that I've composed along with me on electric bass, my friend Debe on African percussion, and my good friend and also medical freedom hero, former guest of the Bassline, my friend Kevin Nathaniel. And he is going to be playing mbira and African percussion, and we should have some other musicians sitting in. It's only $10, simple $10 cover charge. And again, the address is 274 Lenox Avenue. The place is called Rock Mill Fitness. That's this Sunday, March 9th. And it's going to be a really fun show. And I should have mentioned this sooner, but we want to make this into a de facto medical freedom hub. It's not a medical freedom event per se, it's a music event, but we want medical freedom people to know this is a place to meet other medical freedom people, a place to congregate, a place to recharge the spirit as we continue this struggle. So if you can, please come through this Sunday to Rock Mill Fitness. I'd really be delighted to see you. And if you know someone in the New York area, please direct them to this event that starts at 3:30 p.m. I don't know if I mentioned that, should have mentioned that sooner, but it starts at 3:30 p.m. It's not a late night thing. It's not too early, not too late. And that's by design. So 3:30 p.m. this Sunday, Rock Mill Fitness, 274 Lenox Avenue, also known as Malcolm X Boulevard. And you could take the 2 or the 3 train, just walk, just barely down the block, not even 1 block away, and you're right there at the doorstep. Rock Mill Fitness. Come check out this new project called African World Revolution is the name, dedicated to one of my personal heroes, Dr. John Henrik Clarke. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my Substack. Maybe you've been meaning to and just haven't gotten around to it yet. Go to substack.com, substack, substack.com, and you can look up my name, Jeremiah Hosea, Jeremiahhosea. And I've written 26 articles, is it by now, on Substack? And I will continue to write because I've gotten such great feedback that it's a new passion of mine in terms of not just writing, but making sure to produce content every month for my loyal subscribers. And if you can be a paid subscriber, that's a great way to support this program. I greatly appreciate it. Consider that wind beneath my wings. If you can't afford it right now, just please be a free subscriber, and I appreciate that very much as well. You can also support this program by getting a chess lesson for you or a family member. My company is remotelearningchess.com. You can reach me there or just send me an email directly at jeremiahhosea@gmail.com. And the third way to support this program, of course, is to buy some music at, again, jeremiahhosea.com, jeremiahhosea.com. The theme song for this show, Love's the Highest Truth, is right there in the center of the page. Just buy it for $1. And that would be a greatly appreciated contribution, believe it or not. If I could just get 1 million people to buy that song for $1, I'll be a millionaire. So please help me achieve that goal. I'd appreciate it. Right now, I'm just a man of modest means, raising my 2 children with my lovely wife here in New York City, an increasingly expensive and increasingly dangerous place. So when you support this program, you are supporting the well-being of my 2 innocent children, who, of course, I'm trying to raise to be responsible custodians of this planet, and who I want protected, of course, from all of these terrible things that are being imposed on the global public in this state of emergency that we find ourselves in. Of course, I would like to also invite you to join our Stop the Shots community on X. Just look us up on X, Stop the Shots. We have nightly spaces, and there are great folks that are congregating, sharing information, getting to know each other, figuring out ways to collaborate, sharing healing techniques, sharing life experiences and personal wisdom. It's been a great thing, basically, to be a part of the Stop the Shots community. And we invite you to join. We're 3,000 something members strong. I don't know if we're up to 3.5K yet, something like that. But we want to reach 10K and 100K, and we want 1 million members of this Stop the Shots community. So please, if you haven't started an X account, it's worth starting an X account just to join that community. And then from there, you could either just give us your vote of confidence by joining and then never logging on to social media again, or you could participate in the spaces and curate your X account to be medical freedom oriented, where we have great medical freedom leaders putting out really great information on a daily basis. People like guests of this program, like Dr. Judy Mikovits, who's hosting a space right now that I'm going to jump on to as soon as I'm done with this recording. We have, of course, Dr. Ben Marble, former guest of the Bassline, is a founder of Stop the Shots. He's the administrator, basically, of Stop the Shots. We have people like Mary Talley Bowden, Dr. Andrew Zhivzhets, Steve Kirsch, Dr. Kat Lindley, Dr. Merrill Nass. Actually, Merrill Nass was banned from X, which is really concerning. I think they shut down her account. So sorry to come to think of it, I'm touting X, but they still are engaged in degrees of censorship. But in the meantime, it's a tool, and it allows people to be connected, and it allows people to share information. So please, if you haven't already, subscribe to my Substack for free. Please join the Stop the Shots community on X. Please consider buying the theme song of this program for $1. And please consider buying a chess lesson for yourself or a loved one. If you've never played chess before, I will be happy to teach you from scratch. We'll go over one thing at a time. And don't worry about learning too fast or too slow. Just take your time. We'll go over all the details. If you've played chess a little bit in the past, but never really learned any techniques, let's fix that and get into some tactics and some opening theory and some fun things. Or if you have a loved one in your family who is an enthusiast for the game, young or old, I have had elderly students. I've taught children of all ages. So don't worry basically about your age, your experience level. This is a come one, come all sort of invitation to learn and study and appreciate the game of kings and the king of games, which of course is just a great analogy for the things that we face in life. And, they say chess is like life is like chess. It's very true, but if you haven't studied chess, you won't quite be able to appreciate the comparison. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in on a weekly basis, and please help me spread the word about this program. If nothing else, I am consistent, am I not? I've been here every week This was episode 82 of the Bassline. So no sick days for me, no days off, no reruns. We've had 82 straight weeks of medical freedom radio. And I thank all of you for supporting this and for making it possible. And I now ask that you help me spread the word. If you haven't told your friends about the Bassline, please share with them the link to the archive of this program. And please don't be bashful about it, because we really need to engage more people in this conversation. We really need people to understand that bodily autonomy is not something that's abstract. It's something that's very straightforward, and it's paramount if we are to be people that can claim to be dignified people. Then that has to include our bodily autonomy. We should not be subjected to coercion of any kind in regard to that. We should not be subjected to mandates of any kind. And frankly, poison shouldn't be administered under the label of medicine, which is really kind of the fundamental problem. If we could show the harm that's being inflicted, then it wouldn't even be a question of mandates, right? It would be simply a question of not administering these things, which I think can be proven to be harmful if there's no censorship or suppression. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Dr. Phillip Triantos. And until next week, please stay strong, stay vigilant. And as I say at the end of our Stop the Shot spaces, stop the shots. Take care. Have a nice weekend.
With open arms towards the sun, you feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive, and you don't have to be afraid of anything, 'cause you know the truth, and the truth is love. Yes, it is. Wasn't what they said to you, or anything that you learned from a book or from the news. It's not like that, 'cause it's a thing. It is something that you do. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Dib on baby did long. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Dib on baby did love's the highest truth. Nothing could be higher than love, my friend. Love's the deepest truth. Nothing could be deeper than love, my friend. When you stop and you take the time just to think about your life, you'll recall the ones you love and the ones who were always there for you. Better thank those friends better. You better make amends, go and tell them now, yeah. Tell them what they mean to you. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Dib on baby did love. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Doop 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 a doo. Dib on baby did love.